Hello, good afternoon. So today I'll be discussing about a new product under EnGenius Cloud, which is a first for EnGenius. It's a PDU, so Power Distribution Units. So I'll give you a brief introduction of what it is, and then what applications you can use this PDU. If you guys have any questions, just let me know through chat or Q&A. So for those that are coming in late, this session will be recorded. I'll just upload this video on YouTube. It will be available as well on our EnGenius Academy page. So EnGenius Cloud PDUs. So first off, let's talk about power management, because I think this is the first EnGenius power source device that we'll be releasing, apart from of course our PoE switches and our surge arresters or power injectors. So nowadays there are more and more IoT devices that needs power. Maybe in your house you have maybe over 10 smart devices, wireless printers, smart lighting, smart meter readings, maybe smart protection as well. Even the doorbell is now IoT, part of the IoT service as well. So because of that, there is more and more demand in terms of providing power to these devices. Usually at home, in order to extend the ports, we just use off-the-shelves extension cables or extension cords. But these are not standard in terms of when using on a corporate environment. It can be hazards because this can be bought anywhere. We're not sure whether it comes with surge protection, whether it comes with a fuse box or a small fuse just to prevent overloading. Now, of course, not all houses are equipped with a lot of power plugs or power outlets, which is why there's a need to purchase this type of devices. In the SMB data center and enterprise environment, usually they'd have a more advanced power source, advanced sockets. They would be equipped with surge protection because they need to protect, let's say, servers, switches, enterprise grade equipment, PCs, and so on. So usually they would have this as standard. Now for SMBs, data centers, enterprise environment, usually there is a need for like remote control services. They would need to monitor this in real time. Some data centers or those company, some services that offer data centers, they offer the power service as well. Meaning apart from just monitoring your server equipment, if you're like hosting them on their data center, they're going to monitor the power output for you as well, whether your server is drawing more power or less. So that's also building up to the cost. So when it comes to powering up devices, you need to save energy. And of course, you may need to do some power scheduling. So the PDU comes into play because essentially they're the ones that provide power to the device. But not only that, the PDU would usually protect the device as well. Now, there are a lot of PDUs in the market, especially the dumb PDUs, meaning plug-and-play ones without any monitoring information. Maybe there's a small fuse to cater for a bit of overloading in terms of power surges, but that ends there. There are some brands that offer smart PDUs, meaning you would be able to like manage them a bit. Maybe they would have their own interface on the local side, but I haven't seen any cloud-based PDU yet amongst any other brand in the market. Now, what is a PDU? So of course, a PDU provides again power. It should provide reliable power, stable power as compared to your standard extension cord. Now, a smart PDU would have a screen, a meter, where you can monitor your information. Now, EnGenius Cloud PDUs offer a dynamic screen where you can monitor, check the voltage, check the output. I'll talk more about that later on. But usually this is where you get information on the power draw or consumption on the unit. Now, for smart PDUs, they are usually monitored through the network. So they should have a valid network interface. So in our case, we have two Ethernet ports where you can connect this on your network to be monitored on the cloud. And finally, one thing good about PDUs is that you can individually manage the outlets, the ports. So usually for like extension cords or standard power sources where you have multiple inputs, they're all controlled in one chip, in one interface. Now, EnGenius PDUs are controlled on each outlet, meaning each outlet can be controlled independently. For EnGenius Cloud PDUs, these are our main key points, our main key selling points for the unit. Of course, we have safety. We have the certification that is needed for the common electrical equipment. We have the reliability and protection for our equipment as well, for the hardware. And like I mentioned, it's cloud managed. So this can be part of your cloud ecosystem where you're managing your APs, switches, switch extenders, and other cloud products that you have for EnGenius. The PDU is now part of that family as well, meaning from the networking side, from the routing side, to the switches, to the APs, and even to the power supply. You'd be able to manage them all in the same interface, all in the cloud. So later on, I'll show you how you can do that, how it looks like on the dashboard. So like with all EnGenius products, it's almost plug and play. So it's a very easy setup to do, especially with a PDU. So here are some of the certifications we have for the EnGenius PDUs. SAA for Australia, we have CE for Europe, and for the global region, especially in APAC, we have UL listings. When it comes to reliability and protection, so one advantage that we have on our PDU is that we have a built-in fireproof MOV. So this module prevents power surges or spikes on the network. So it serves to prevent your device from overcharging or maybe from lacking power as well. We also have a built-in circuit breaker, 12 amps, to prevent the device from overloading. So let's say you plug the device the first time, it tries to draw more power than required. So this unit will prevent that device from getting that much power. So it's going to prevent it from overloading or from burning. So EnGenius PDUs also has a power on sequence, meaning if you power on a device, let's say you have all 6 slots for this model, all 6 outlets used up or plugged in, and then you power on the unit, so it's not going to power on all the devices at the same time. So that may cause less power to some of the units or overdraw for some of them. So what the unit will do is it's going to have a power sequence, meaning it's going to power up maybe the port 1 first, slot 2, and then slot 3, and so on and so forth in sequence. So this can all be customized on the interface as well. When it comes to cloud management, we have all the usual cloud information that we can get with our other products as well. So you have your user interface on the cloud portal. So same login under cloud.engenius.ai. So the device is plug and play. Essentially, if you want to manage this on the cloud, you just have to scan the QR code or scan the serial number and then add it on the cloud. And then from there, you can manage the unit already. You can do bulk maintenance or bulk management if you want to apply group settings. If you have multiple PDUs on a network or they are scattered through multiple sites, you'll be able to manage them as well. So it doesn't matter which location, so long as it's connected to the internet, you'll be able to manage remote PDUs as well. Now, of course, reporting logs are very important, so that's available under EnGenius Cloud as well. So you'd be able to view historical data as well. And then, of course, since this is our part of our ecosystem, our unified network management, alongside our APs, switches, switch extenders, and SD-WAN, now you have the PDU as well as part of that platform for managing everything. Now, some of the functions that we have for the PDUs are real-time notifications. This can be customizable as well. And then we have a real-time monitoring. So that's through the cloud or through the screen that's embedded on the unit. We have a remote option to trigger an on and off control for the units. You can do that by schedule as well. So maybe you want to do a scheduled reboot, so that can be triggered per port. And then we also have a self-healing auto reboot as well. So in terms of the real-time notifications, you can enable or disable this through email alerts on the cloud portal or through Cloud2Go app. So you'll be able to see the PDU as well through the Cloud2Go app. So some types of alerts that you can modify are, for example, over voltage or under voltage. You can set a specific threshold. Now, once it goes over it or under it, then maybe you can trigger a shutdown to prevent damage to the devices plugged in. Or you just want to be alerted about it, so you can trigger an alert as well. Now, in terms of monitoring, on the cloud, we would have a graph. So I'll show you this later on how that would look like. You have your historical data. You can see the days and weeks or months, depending on your view. And of course, since it's on the cloud, everything is stored there. You can just review them anytime as well. Now, the same information can be viewed on the local display. You have a simplified display as well. You would have notifications. You would see if there's a new firmware available. You would see also the current power budget, how much volts, how much watts, how much ampere is being used by the device. So everything would be laid out on that local information display. Now, in order to like access the device remotely, let's say you want to do power on and off, so that can be triggered from the cloud as well. Now, each individual ports can be powered on and off. You can do this by schedule. You can do this anywhere in the system. You can trigger this even through the Cloud to Go app as well. So I mentioned scheduling. So like our SSID control, where you can trigger it on and off, or our PoE switch control, where you can set an on and off schedule and an automatic reset. So that can be incorporated on the PDU sides as well. So each day of the week is listed there. You can select what time is the port powering up, what time would it be totally shut down. If you want to trigger a specific reset, maybe there are some devices that you want to reset on the system, you can do so as well. Now we also have a function called self-heal and reboot. So here, if you nominated one of the ports as maybe your internet port, your a router port, maybe you have your ISP router plugged in on that specific port, and then the unit lost internet connection, so you can do an auto reset on that router plugged into the port. So essentially, it's going to reset the plug where the router is plugged in, and then from there, it's going to try to recover internet access. When it comes to mounting, so all the brackets that you need to deploy the unit on a rack is included. So we support vertical rack mounting on the shelf. We also support horizontal rack mounting. So we have two models depending on the requirement. We have a 6-port model or a 12-socket model. So that's 1U and 2Us. We also support API. So since the device is on the cloud, so let's say you are monitoring, or you have a third-party monitoring system, where you have mixed brands of electrical equipment, maybe for network equipment as well. So you'd be able to monitor and control your EnGenius PDU through that third-party device. So maybe some of your clients are using SCADA system, maybe some of them are using other brands in terms of their electrical equipment. So you can mix them up and have them managed on that separate third-party monitoring system. So RESTful API is very customizable, so it's very easy to use as well. For EnGenius PDUs, we have two models to start off. We actually have 4, but the other 2 are for the US market. So there's a difference in the socket size as well as the voltage that it uses. For the international market, we have the ECP106 INT. So these has 6 sockets for power. And then the other model is ECP212 INT. So this one has 12 sockets. So depending on the client's requirement, whether they need 6, 12, or even more, so they can have them all connected on the same rack. They can rack, like I mentioned, we can have this mounted vertically or horizontally. Now, both of them share the same options. So for the input, you have a C14 socket, and the voltage that it supports is 200 to 240. Maximum current is 12 ampere. For the frequency, it supports 50 and 60 hertz. So I believe for the Asia Pacific market, this is okay. For the sockets, we're going to have optional accessories as well. Let's say, for example, a converter from C13 to maybe a UK plug, a US plug, or an EU plug. So there are a lot of off-the-shelf or off-the-market products that you can purchase as well as accessories for these plugs. Maybe you want an extension, maybe you want a longer reach, maybe you want a splitter or something. So there are a lot of accessories that you can use with the C13 type of input. Now, like I mentioned, we have a 6-socket model and a 12-socket model. The 6-socket model can be mounted vertically or horizontally. The other one just horizontally. So both of the units has 2 LAN ports, 2 gigabit ports, and then we have a resettable breaker embedded. We also have a power button on the unit as well. So this is how it's mounted and it looks like on the rack. So essentially, you would have every option that you need available or easily accessible from the unit itself. So your ports are there for your Ethernet cable. You have your input here. Your breaker is easily accessible here, and the screen can be easily accessed from here as well. And this is how the 12 outlet model would look like. So for the screen itself, the built-in LCD panel, you have information whether there is a new firmware upgrade that you can push on the unit. You also see whether the unit is cloud managed. You would also have information whether you have alerts, and then you can of course scroll further if you need to view more information. Maybe the power draw per socket or per port. So you can scroll through that through the menus as well. I cannot show you that now, unfortunately, but I'll just go through the user interface. So regardless of whether you mount it horizontally or vertically or the other way around on the other side, so the screen would auto rotate as well to match it. So usually for this type of PDU or smart PDUs in general, these are suited for IT infrastructure environments, maybe data centers or server racks where you have multiple network equipment that you need to power up. Now, I've seen a lot of server racks wherein they just use a typical extension cable. Now, that can have a lot of risk. Also, they would not have any type of monitoring or a specific type of information on how much draw or power is being used by the equipment. So EnGenius PDUs, being cloud-based, you can have monitoring, you can have remote management, you can view everything at a glance as well. So this can help you as well in terms of determining how much power draw all the network equipment is consuming. So you can use this for networking equipment, you can use this for IoT. Essentially any device can be used with our PDUs. So one application scenario, so let's say we have a fast food environment and then we have a PDU to power up a food menu system, a digital kiosk. We have a media server that's also being powered up by the PDU. So let's say, what if something goes wrong? What if, let's say, suddenly you have over voltage or let's say undercurrent that's happening. So that could result to everything going offline. So with this PDU, what it's going to do is immediately inform you of what's happening. Sorry, the screen being blocked. So you get notification on your phone, you get instant push notifications, you get notifications on the cloud on what's going on. So it's going to tell you which specific ports is having the issue, is there over voltage. So you get those specific alerts that you would need on the power side. But automatically as well, if you've set it up, the EnGenius PDU can also remotely, let's say for example, lost internet access. It can power cycle your router, regardless of what type of router is plugged in. It can recover your kiosk. It can recover your media server, digital signage. It can reboot it by simply restarting the specific slots. So of course, if you have other devices that are not affected by the outage, those devices will still keep powered up and be online because they are on separate control or separate sockets. So again, having a new product on our ecosystem essentially enlarges it. So right now we have the access points, we have the L2 switches, we have the SD-WANs or switch extenders, and the PDU. So of course we'll still continue to expand our ecosystem so that you'll be able to manage more and more IoT devices on the same pane or on the same window. Now, before I go to your questions, let me do a quick run through of the user interface. So give me a moment. Okay, so on the cloud, once you log in, we have actually a new change that we have added after the maintenance that we did, I think yesterday or a couple of days ago. So you should see a button here that says View Beta Version. So this would allow you to view or to have a different dashboard. So on this dashboard, we're incorporating the PDU. So if you have a PDU sample with you, you would be able to see the PDU here on the dashboard, and you can see the power status as well. So like for example, here on a demo site, we have 2 PDUs, we have a switch extender, so one of our new products as well. And then here on the right hand side, we have the power information. So we can see how many devices are powered by these 2 PDUs, which outlets are disabled, which one is out of safe range. So if you have, let's say, issues that are being highlighted, the system would highlight to you as well about that. So let me go to one of the networks. So managing the PDUs on the cloud is similar to how you manage the rest of our equipment, APs. So you'd have your information on your PDUs, like how many are on. You would have, like, say, your LAN IP. But of course, you would have different actions here because the PDU serves a different purpose. So here you can see your outlets. You can see how much power draw it's providing, and then you can also see immediately at a glance like what's the current voltage, power draw in watts, and the current that's flowing on each of the outlets. So going to the details side, you'd get further information and summary on each of the ports. So here you have your networking information, and if I edit one of the ports, I would be able to see more options. For example, how much power on delay you want to have on the unit when you power on or off a unit. And then you can also set what type of device is connected, which can unlock more options as well. We also have an option here to never power off the unit. Let's say, for example, at the event that someone accidentally resets or configures something on the cloud, so that would prevent this, let's say, socket from being powered off. Maybe that's the gateway, maybe that's your server that has to always be on, so that can be triggered from there. So on the schedule, this is where you can schedule the outlet, whether it's available or not, and whether you want to do a reset on a specific time of the day. So that can be triggered from here. So that can be done on each individual ports and on specific days on the weeks as well. So auto reboot can also be triggered. So auto reboot has a few options here. So let's say, for example, you key in your router IP, and then suddenly your PDU is not able to communicate to that router. So what you can do if the router is plugged in is automatically reboot the port. Or maybe it can be another device. Maybe it's an IP camera or any other devices you can power on, or IP-based device. So if it cannot ping that device, you can trigger a restart or reboot. So for the alert side, you can trigger over voltage ranges or safe ranges. So let's say it crosses over let's say maybe 100 watts or 100 volts or something, or it goes below your desired range. From here you can trigger an auto stop, or essentially it will stop powering up the port to prevent damage on what's plugged in. So from each of the ports you can also configure it. You can dedicate a safe ampere range as well. So if you click on the ports that are currently drawing power on the unit, you'd be able to see some historical data. Let's say, for example, the current power usage. You can review this for a day, a week, or month if you're using a pro version. You can see the information here. So let's say, for example, the power looks stable on the devices currently plugged in on socket number 2. From here you can track whether it's how much power is drawing. So here consistently 24 watts and 252 milliamps. So I can see that information from here. Yeah, so if you have spikes, if you have let's say if the unit went offline, or if you suddenly lost power, so that would be informed as well here on the historical data. Now you can also do a quick reset of the port in case you need to. So let's say you want to quickly turn on and off the port, so you can trigger that from the system as well. So in the future we'll be adding more options to our PDU. So since it's on the cloud, we can easily add new functions to it, more firmware, more options as we upgrade the firmware. Maybe in the future we can add like a cost computer or something, so that you can estimate your cost consumption for each of the devices that are plugged in. So yeah, let me go with your questions, so give me a moment. Okay, one question here. Suppose out of 6 or 12 ports, any ports get damaged and we can't turn it on. We can't turn it on or off through the web UI. Can we get the details of the issue of that port and the PDU screen, or is there anywhere else that we can see where the issue is actually happening? So yeah, if anything happens, let's say for example you get an issue, maybe over voltage or under voltage of one of your outlets, so that information would be available in 3 areas. So first, of course, is the cloud portal, and then second is the Cloud to Go app, and then third, the information can be also reviewed from the LCD screen that's embedded on the unit. So from the LCD screen you can scroll through the different ports. I just can't show you that now, unfortunately, but you'll be able to scroll through individual sockets to check the port status as well. Another question is about the remote triggering on and off. Is this for the whole PDU or just the individual plug? So this is triggered per individual plug. As we know, the power consumption may be different per socket. You may be dedicating each socket for a different appliance or server or network information or network device. So the remote trigger can be done individually. Or if you want to group a certain number of sockets together, you can schedule it that way as well. Can the monitoring be done with each outlet? Yes, that can be done, but I believe that information is not unlocked right now. So it's more of the draw. Oh, wait. Actually, I think that's what I showed you guys just now. Let me go back. Yes, it can be monitored per outlet. So like here, for example, nothing's plugged in, so there shouldn't be any data. And then as I go through the rest of the ports that has or that is providing power, so it's showing me that information. Yes, it's showing monitoring information per outlet. PDU, any UK type. So the current PDU that we have has a C13 input. Wait, here we go. So it has a C13 type of plug, but we have accessories available so that you can change the port to a UK plug. So essentially, you need to plug it over it. You see this depression right here. So once you plug that accessory, the output, the new the new socket that's over it is a UK plug or a universal plug. That type of accessory can be purchased off the shelf as well. It can be easily bought online or any hardware store. Another question here, is there a C13 plus C19 model or customization available? So the current models that we offer are all C13. The one that's available for Asia Pacific is the international model. We have a US model that uses US pins, but that runs in 110 volts if I'm not mistaken. So the specific international version that we carry for Asia Pacific supports 200 to 240 volts. So currently we support C13 outlets, but if we need a different type of outlet, we would have accessories as well, which you can plug on top of this outlet so that you would have other outputs that you can use on your countries. Can the PDU be managed as a standalone device? So right now the PDU is available for managing over the cloud. I'm not sure if we will have an option for local management, but right now the local UI, from there you can only configure your network information. For example, IP address, management VLAN, if you have any specific gateway or DNS that you need to configure, so that's what you can configure on the local UI. But in terms of the monitoring information, you can monitor your PDU information through the RFD or through the RGB display. Can this PDU be monitored with FitExpress? So right now it's only available on EnGenius Cloud, but you can use the EnGenius Cloud to Go app to monitor and manage the EnGenius PDU. Another question here, what is the lifespan of our PDU? So I believe we have some sort of MTBF information on the data sheet. I'd have to double check on that. I'll get back to you, Alishan. What is the default IP address of PDU? Because if we try to customize anything without adding into it on the cloud portal. So the PDUs would have a default IP address. I don't have one in hand right now, unfortunately. But they would have a default IP address similar to what we have on our APs, switches, and gateways. So each of our product platform has a different default IP. For example, APs are 192.168.1.1, switches are 192.168.0.239. For the gateway is 192.168.66.1, depending on your DHCP service. For the PDU, I believe they would carry their own unique starting IP as well. But by default, they would also be on DHCP. So if you plug it on a network switch, they would automatically grab an IP from your switch. But yeah, you would be able to access the PDU first in case you would need to configure, let's say, your management VLAN, maybe a specific gateway or DNS service, and that type of information you can configure beforehand before adding it on the cloud. By the way, for those who just came in, this webinar is recorded and will be uploaded on our YouTube APAC page. I think end of the week I'll be uploading 2 videos. One was the webinar for the EOC series, the outdoor broadband point-to-point, point-to-multipoint devices that we just launched, as well as the cloud EnGenius PDUs. Okay, guys. If no further questions, I think that would conclude our session for today. So thank you guys for attending, and you guys have a wonderful day. Bye bye.